On February 20th of 2016, a father and daughter disappeared after the father left behind ominous clues to his wife. 2 days later, police would locate the father, but not the daughter, and when they found out what happened, an entire town would be shocked. This is the case of Ryan Lawrence. Hello, friend, and welcome to High Time Crime. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and also 80s fitness commercials.
We're gonna do some jazzercise that'll keep you fit and smiling, sugar.
But anyway, today we're going over the case of Ryan Lawrence and what happened in 2016. And just a heads up, this case is very disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. Ryan Joseph Lawrence was born on August 22nd of 1991 in Syracuse, New York, to his mother, Mary Lawrence. It's not exactly known who his father is. There's also not a wild amount of information on what Ryan was like as a child. But his mother, Mary, in 1998, began working as the director of the Victim Advocate Program at the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office. As a victim's advocate, Mary would help support crime victims and their families, helping them through the court system and prosecutors. Mary would also help to counsel people. She would accompany them to court and also make sure that their rights were being upheld. Mary was described as dedicated, compassionate, and community-minded. She had a total of 4 children, 2 daughters and 2 sons, Ryan being the youngest. At the age of 14, Ryan's father abandoned the family, so I suppose that's why he's not mentioned. Also at the age of 14 is when Ryan began to hurt himself. And by hurt himself, there was a lot of different things he did. But we also know that Mary died of kidney cancer in 2008 when Ryan was 17 years old. At this point, he was either a junior or senior in high school, which around this time, he would have either had or gotten dreadlocks. Ryan's older sister said that his mother's death caused Ryan to struggle emotionally and have a bunch of troubles. But after his mother's death, Ryan would receive an honorable mention in the 2009 Scholastic Art Awards, and that same year, he graduated high school. After graduating high school, I don't believe Ryan went to college, though there's a chance that he may have. What exactly Ryan would do for the next couple of years isn't known, but by 2012, a lot of things would change. Ryan would first begin working at a place called Real Food Co-op as a cashier and also someone who did stocking. He worked there from 2012 to 2015, and this may have been the place he got fired from for stealing, which happened, by the way. The store had to fire him just to be safe. And that brings me to my next point. Thank you to PIA VPN for sponsoring this video. Now you may be wondering what a VPN or a virtual private network is. PIA VPN is an app for all platforms, including Windows, Mac, and many more, that will hide your IP address and encrypt your internet connection to protect you from anyone that's trying to snoop on your online activity and steal your information. Internet service providers, government censors, and hackers can easily steal your passwords, photos, and other sensitive information, and nobody wants that. Think of PIA as being your own internet security guard. PIA also allows you to access geo-restricted content in the streaming services such as Disney+, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. With just one click, you can be anywhere in the world. And trust me, watching Netflix without PIA is like paying for a season pass, but you can only access 1/3 of the DLCs. The great thing about PIA VPN is that you protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time, so that way you can protect your entire home. PIA is also known for its strict no-log policy, meaning it does not record or store any user data. Signing up is risk-free, PIA VPN offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it out with no worries. Use my link in the description to grab an 83% discount on PIA. That makes it only $2.03 a month. And not only that, you'll also get 4 extra months for free. What are you waiting for? Thank you again to PIA VPN. But also in 2012, he started working at Teavana at Destiny Mall, which clearly by its name is a tea company. Ryan would work there until 2013. Here is where he would also meet someone who worked there as well, and her name was Morgan Forster. Morgan graduated from high school in 2011 and would eventually start working at Teavana and also Francesca's, which is a clothing boutique store. At Teavana, she met Ryan, and these two hit it off. So much so to the point that people said the couple were inseparable and that they fell in love in no time. Also, something else would happen that would really speed up this relationship. Sometime between August to November of 2013, Morgan became pregnant, and this changed the dynamic of their relationship. Ryan, by this point, had quit his job working at Teavana and was only working at Real Food Co-op. Morgan was still working 2 jobs, and these two weren't doing great financially. They were already struggling before a baby came into play, but regardless, they were still going to try. At some point, Morgan Forster would turn into Morgan Lawrence when the couple decided to get married. I believe it was more of a small type of wedding, possibly a courthouse wedding, as it happened pretty quickly between when Morgan found out she was pregnant and when the baby would come. On April 24th of 2014, Maddox Lawrence was born into this world. A sweet, vibrant, and beautiful little angel she was, and she's described as being bright, happy, and a cheerful girl. Just being in the presence of her uplifted those around her. Sadly, when Maddox was around 8 to 10 months old in early 2015, she was diagnosed with retinoblastoma, which, according to the Mayo Clinic, is a kind of eye cancer that starts as a growth of cells in the retina. It's also mostly common in children. Maddox would eventually have to undergo treatment, which I'll get into in a moment. Now, because of Maddox's diagnosis and condition, the couple started to have even more financial issues and had to start driving all over the place to take Maddox to her appropriate appointments. Ryan and Morgan would really struggle paying the rent and other bills. Morgan was still working at both Teavana and kind of Francesca's, and in mid-2015, Ryan began working as a pastry delivery driver, and he also quit his job working at Real Food Co-op by that point. It was said that Maddox would go with Ryan on his deliveries quite frequently, all the way into early 2016, and that he seemed happy with her. Ryan and Morgan also started a GoFundMe to help ease the costs of their financial burdens. But good news would come as by 2016, Maddox had actually beat cancer. Now, the most typical form of treatment for retinoblastoma is something called an enucleation, which typically involves the surgical removal of the eye. I'm unsure if Maddox had that surgery or not, but there's a possibility that she could have and could have lost an eye, which didn't do anything negative to her personality, and in fact, she was still the vibrant, young, happy little girl she always was. Meanwhile, Ryan was changing, or perhaps he was just always that way. He began to feel very strong resentment towards Maddox, and possibly Morgan too. Ryan claimed that as pressures to give Maddox the perfect life built up, he began to really struggle against relentless waves of negative emotions, bearing witness to the pain and sadness in many of Morgan's and Maddox's interactions, which is what he said. Which, mind you, by the fall of 2015, Maddox was mostly normal, albeit still going through some things. She was a happy little child. Ryan, at some point in late 2015, started thinking very evil thoughts, partially because he was working a dead-end job. I also read that at some point he was working as a gas station attendant around this time. But Ryan also had a suspended driver's license, a $1,000 fine for something, and his car was uninspected. Everything in his life appeared to him to be going downhill and fast. While it's not specified exactly when, Ryan developed a very heinous plan, and he was going to follow through with it. But there would be some time he would take to actually fully develop this plan. Ryan, possibly in November to December of 2015, first started off by going to the library and renting a couple of survival manuals. This was most likely to learn how to start a fire, and he also said it was to survive. Between December of 2015 and January of 2016, Ryan began to buy a bunch of things, specifically a container for a fire, lighter fluid, matches or a lighter, possibly a shovel, and also some other things. Another item he definitely bought was 2 wigs, and this was going to be used as a disguise to try and get away with his plan. Same with spray paint to paint his body. By February of 2016, Ryan was getting more sinister by the day, and his plan was about to come to life. In the days leading up to the event, specifically February 15th through the 18th, it was stated that Ryan worked as normal, taking Maddox with him on his deliveries, and that they seemed perfectly fine. Ryan acted very calm. On February 19th, though, Ryan would go on a practice run, as he called it. He woke up early this day, as he usually did, but this day was different. Ryan this day, or the day before, had decided to put all of his gear into his car. He put in a baseball bat, lighter fluid, a tarp or a container, 2 wigs, and a couple of other things. Ryan then potentially went out during the morning for his pastry delivery run, and may have even taken Maddox. Eventually, though, I believe he went back home and picked up his wife Morgan to drop her off at her shift at the mall. By about 10:30 to 11 a.m., Ryan would take Maddox to a remote recreational spot called Labrador Hollow Unique Area. This day would have been pretty cold, most likely between 20 to 30 degrees, as they lived in New York and it was February. Ryan would park near a fire pit area that he had scouted and felt was a good place to go through with his plan. Ryan took Maddox out of the car and brought the bat with him. But this day, nothing happened. Ryan would eventually just put Maddox back into the car and either went to pick up Morgan or met her back at their house. That was at around 2:30 to 5 p.m. Maddox would fall asleep pretty early into the night after being fed and given a bath, and it was said that Ryan and Morgan barely talked, but that Ryan also kept his negative emotions hidden. While both Maddox and Morgan were in bed sleeping, Ryan stayed up and was finalizing his plan in his head. The next day, he was gonna snap. On Saturday, February 20th of 2016, Ryan would wake up at their home at about 6 a.m. with pure evil in his mind. He got dressed wearing a pair of jeans and a jacket, and Morgan woke up around this time also. At around 6:30 a.m., Ryan got Maddox dressed and fed her while Morgan got ready for work. At 7 a.m., Ryan would drive Morgan to the mall for her job, and she expected to be picked up later in the day. At about 7:15 to 7:25 a.m., Ryan would drive back to their home, quickly write a note signifying something bad is going to happen or happened, and then went back into his car and left it in there. At 7:30 a.m., he sent Morgan some kind of video to, I believe, throw her off, but in it he said, "Morgan, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I want you to have the life that you deserve." And then he told her that Max is gone. He told her he took Max. Ryan would then drive to the Labrador Hollow, which was about 25 miles and 30 to 40 minutes away. Around 8 to 10 a.m. is when Ryan and Maddox would arrive to this area, and Ryan then took Maddox to a fire pit site. Ryan then got ready to do the worst possible thing imaginable. Anywhere from 8:30 to 9 a.m., he killed Maddox with a bat and then he burned her body. He did this from about 9 a.m. till about 1 p.m., and then after he was finished, he put the remains of Maddox into his car and drove to the inner harbor near Onondaga Creek and dumped them. Ryan would then drive the car back to the mall's parking lot, which was about 5 to 10 minutes away. Here, Ryan would leave the car for Morgan with a note inside of it. Ryan left on foot, and eventually Morgan's shift would end. After Ryan didn't answer any of her texts or calls, Morgan must have went out into the parking lot to see if he was there, and that's when she found the car. Nobody was inside of the car, but when she got inside, she found the note, so quickly she drove to their house to figure out what was going on. When Morgan arrived to the home, she saw that it was empty and panicked and immediately called 911. An investigation started right away, and later into the night, an Amber Alert was issued. Ryan that night slept underneath of a bridge, and mind you, it would have gotten to probably freezing temperatures. But regardless, the next day, or Sunday, February 21st, here's how Ryan's day was spent. He walked all day across the town, spent some time in the woods, and eventually ended up at 8182 Oswego Road, which was an abandoned house. He spent the night there and lit a fire inside. Meanwhile, the police were looking for both Maddox and Ryan, trying to figure out where they were. This day, Morgan went on to the news to try and plead with Ryan to bring Maddox home. And I'm going to warn you, it's sad to watch.
Please just bring Maddox home. Maddox, I love you, honey. Ryan, please call. We just want to know that the both of you are safe. The whole family loves you. The whole family wants you both home. And we just want to know that you guys are in a good place. And we'd love to see you both as soon as possible.
The day after this, or Monday, February 22nd, was going to be different. Ryan woke up at some point in time and began walking into Baldwinsville. He decided to stop into a store called Thrifty Shopper so that way he could get a comforter, I imagine because it was freezing outside. Here, luckily, even though by this point Ryan was wearing some sort of wig, the employee who was working recognized him from the news and immediately called the police after Ryan left. At about 4:30 p.m. this day, Ryan was caught by the police and taken in for questioning, where he was questioned all night.
Good evening. We begin with the breaking news. 2 days after the Amber Alert went into effect, major developments this evening. 21-month-old Maddox Lawrence, she's still missing. The Amber Alert still in effect, but it's her father, 24-year-old Ryan Lawrence, who is in police custody. They took him in nearly 6 hours ago now. A 911 call reporting a man matching Lawrence's description came from a worker at the Thrifty Shopper on Downer Street around 4:30 in the afternoon. Police found him then walking along Downer Street heading towards the Baldwinsville village just a short time later. Now, police have said Lawrence could be unstable, could have been a threat to himself. They said he was actually in somewhat of a disguise, trying to conceal himself with a wig, a baseball hat, sunglasses, and more when he went to that Thrifty Shopper store. But still, someone recognized him underneath that mask. There are no reports of him resisting police when they found him this afternoon. He was then turned over to Syracuse police custody.
The next day, or Tuesday, February 23rd, Ryan agreed to take detectives on a tour of his whereabouts on Saturday. After doing so, he confessed on the scene of 8182 Oswego Road, and following this, police took him back to the station where he confessed again, and this time signed a police statement. Later this day, a state police diver would find Maddox's body.
We are following breaking news right now in a search for missing 21-month-old Maddox Lawrence. We were just told, and we are live with our anchor, Michael Benny. Michael, just heard the news of a body has been pulled from that area, Onondaga Creek. We are told this is the search for 21-month-old Maddox Lawrence. What have you heard at the scene? What are police saying now?
Allison, good afternoon. What a rotten day here in Syracuse. We have just learned from Syracuse police that a body that is believed to be 21-month-old Maddox Lawrence has been pulled from the Inner Harbor, where we have been reporting all morning long, where we have been, where members of the community have turned out, some of them with their children, concerned mothers, hoping against hope that this would end a different way, but it is just not so. Let's take you down.
So upsetting. But later down the line, Ryan's trial would come, and I want to show you two different people talking. Once again, Morgan, Maddox's mom, and by this point the ex-wife of Ryan, said this. And again, to warn you, it's upsetting and makes you mad as well because of Ryan's crocodile tears.
The actions of Ryan Lawrence have greatly affected my life. I've been forced against my will out of motherhood. I've been robbed of my livelihood and my most valuable possession. I'm uncomfortable conversing with others about my life experiences due to the past few years revolving around providing the best life I could for Ryan and Maddox. I've lost my home. I've lost my job. I've lost many people I consider family. And I'm talking about your family because of your actions. I'm suffering from anxiety and depression because of losing Max and all the drastic changes I'm facing, such as my housing situation. Ryan Lawrence's actions have left me unbearably heartbroken. I'm dumbfounded by the audacity of his to make such an uneducated decision on the behalf of everyone in Maddox's life. Any one of our family members or friends would have gladly taken her from you if you had just told her that you were feeling you were going to harm her. Okay. His completely irrational actions have left me with no answers or closure. Ryan has not only taken my daughter away, but also abandoned me as well, leaving me with feelings of extreme loneliness and sadness. This situation also leaves me questioning my own judgment of others' intentions and their character. Burying my daughter alone was the single most howling experience I've ever endured. Knowing her death was at the hands of the man that I once loved and trusted with our lives shakes me to the core. Because of what Ryan has done, I can never again be sure that I know someone for who they truly are. Ryan Lawrence's actions have affected the lives of others as well.
I really do feel for Morgan. Not only did she speak, but Ryan's own brother, Rich, also made a very profound statement that I believe was delivered perfectly. How Rich reacted is how every sibling or family member should react when their family member does something so heinous.
I'm Rich Lawrence.
Good morning, Mr. Lawrence.
Good morning.
And if you would speak up so everyone can hear you.
Ryan, as I sat down to write this statement, I knew I had to choose my words carefully, because these are the last words I'm going to speak to you. I thought I was going to tell you that the brother I once knew is dead, and what's left is a stranger and a murderer. However, I know that is not true, and deep down, it's not what I actually believe. You are a stranger and you are a murderer. But you are also my brother. You didn't turn into someone else, you weren't possessed, and you weren't acting against your will. You are my brother, and you are 100% responsible for your own actions. As it turns out, the brother I thought you were never actually existed. Beyond your facade, and you had me fooled. You only truly opened up to me twice in our lives. I don't know if you remember. Once before Maddox was born, you called me from a dinner party. You were hiding in the bushes, like the coward you proved yourself to be. All because you were too scared and weak to face your responsibilities. At the time, I thought you could be brave and a supportive father. So I encouraged you to be that person. I told you that bravery is the act of doing the right thing, even when you're afraid to do it. I wanted you to pick yourself up and take responsibility for yourself and your family's future. The only other time you opened up to me was long before the first, during our trip to Anguilla to honor Mom. You broke down and told me the only reason you hadn't run away since Mom died was because no one in the family had given you a reason to. You said we were too good to you. I now realize how right you were. We never did anything but encourage you in whatever plan for your future you came up with, no matter how ridiculous it was. And you had a lot of them. This happened far too often. I encouraged you because I wanted you to pick a direction and stick with it. And I want you to drift around from false goal to false goal and never find happiness. When you called me to tell me Morgan was pregnant, I was so proud of you for choosing to stay in the picture. I felt that Morgan and Maddox were the future that you were looking for. I was wrong. I didn't know what was going on behind the curtain. I speak to you now as the father of a little girl. If the love of your child doesn't provide a bright enough future for you, nothing ever will. Maddox loved you. She trusted you. And she followed you into those woods. She was punished because of your weakness. You were never a father. That title is reserved for protectors and selfless men. You are neither. You will not hear words of encouragement from me, not anymore. You, my brother, will live the rest of your life knowing that you murdered your best shot at true happiness.
Another clip I'm going to play from the trial is Ryan's statement, which is, to be honest, just despicable.
It's incredibly hard to talk about this for many reasons, and even harder to find the words to explain such a horrible crime. It's with all of my heart that I convey my sincerest apology to everyone for taking Maddox from her family and everyone who loved her. I'm also utterly sorry for denying Maddox her chance at life. I can't expect your forgiveness, but I tell you now that the sorrow I feel for what I've done is complete and comes from the deepest depths of my being. This sorrow I feel has nothing to do with being in jail, but for the pain, for the loss of Maddox. I miss her so bad. Max is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'd say that to her all the time, and to anyone else who'd listen. It was amazing to have her everywhere I went, including all the times I brought her to work with me. When our baby was diagnosed with cancer, we were in shock, but hopeful that the doctors in New York City would cure her, as indeed they did. Even after enduring countless overnight trips to the hospital and fruitless attempts at soothing a baby who couldn't possibly understand why she couldn't eat for hours before invasive treatment procedures, the threat of her cancer returning was very real. Our work schedules were arranged so that one of us was always with the baby, but there was very little time for the three of us together, nor enough money for a sitter or much of anything else. Still, we treated her and fed her better than we did ourselves, and loved her far more than anything else we've ever known. In no way can I justify my actions, and there is no one to blame but myself. There is no good explanation for such a horrendous crime, and regret is too simple a term to describe what I feel. What I can say is I've never felt such strong emotions towards anything in my life than my ever-growing and unconditional love for Maddox, and now I'm completely distraught by overwhelming grief and anguish for what I've done. I was never jealous of my daughter. Both our families know I love Maddox. If anything, I only wanted more for her. Maddox was always at the top of my list, and is constantly, to this day, the focal point of my thoughts and actions since she first came into my life. I'll never overcome this feeling of loss, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how I got to such a dark, irrational state. She was my life's purpose, and making her happy was my job. Such strong feelings of love, however, brought equally strong feelings of fear and uncertainty when it came to my responsibility for her happiness. Although I blame no one else for my acts, as the pressures to give her the perfect life built up, I also struggled against relentless waves of negative emotions every day, bearing witness to the pain and sadness in many of my wife and daughter's interactions. Yet no reason and no psychological diagnosis seemed plausible to me to have made me commit this act against my very nature, taking the one thing I loved most. This Easter, my father, weeping, asked me what I was thinking. In despair, I gave him the only answer I could. I don't know. Although these pressures led me to this unthinkable act, I cannot now make sense of what I did. There's no valid reason for why our daughter Maddox had to die. Not a second goes by when I don't wish I could take back what I did, and that Maddox would still be alive. I pray all the time that she's in a better place and that God and my mother are watching over her. To Morgan and all of those who loved her, I hope that from my plea and acceptance of responsibility, you can find at least some measure of closure from the pain I inflicted. This was, and is, without question, the worst act I will ever commit. I recognize that no one but myself can be blamed for this atrocity, and I will always be traumatized knowing I'm responsible for such incomprehensible actions. Although I accept this punishment, nothing can be worse. Nothing can be worse than my own despair at the loss of Maddox, and I regret that I'm not alone in that feeling. I love my daughter with all my heart. The only thing that can match my love and loss of her now is the dreadful pain and remorse I feel for committing such a terribly terrible crime. I'm sorry. I know I can never be sorry enough.
It's obvious he never truly loved Maddox. You cannot do something so evil to someone you love. You just cannot. But not long after this, Ryan would be sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. And under New York state law, after 25 years, he'll be eligible for parole, and I really hope that his life ends in prison, that he never knows freedom again. Ryan is the epitome of pure evil, and what he did was just absolutely sickening. There was some speculation that he did this because he was jealous of Maddox, but he denied that. He claimed it was because of essentially hardships, and that he couldn't bear it. He also claimed he heard voices, specifically his mother's voice, telling him to give her Maddox so she can take care of him. Nice job blaming your own deceased mother for your selfish actions. Some more interesting things about Ryan is that apparently a year before the murder took place, he killed the family dog Trooper after the dog became ill and it had to be euthanized. Ryan couldn't afford to have a vet do it, and so he took the dog into the woods and, yeah, It was also discovered by 2 psychiatrists that Ryan was of a sound mind when he did this, and that he also did not have any mental illnesses. What a pathetic excuse for a human being. May he forever rot. Regardless, though, Maddox at the time of her death was 21 months old and just a baby girl getting ready to grow in this world. She already had such troubles and difficulties before even being able to understand anything, and she remained happy and cheerful as always. Maddox would have grown up to become somebody, and unfortunately that was all robbed from her by one of the closest people to her, someone she trusted wholeheartedly and loved. Rest in peace to Maddox, and I really hope that Morgan and her family is doing okay and finding peace in this world.